Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Jitianu!
Hey! Thank you, George. Thank you all for being here. I hope there's still a little energy left in you before the coffee break. We will talk about Oxygen plugins in the next 40 minutes or so. Hopefully it won't take longer than that. I might keep you from the coffee, you know. I'm just joking. So today's agenda, first we will talk a bit about why are plugins important, why do we see them as an important aspect in Oxygen. I will present the plugin that we've implemented. By the way, they are all available on GitHub, so if you go on our GitHub page and there's an Oxygen standalone plugin label, just click it and you will see all 12 plugins that we currently have available there. And at the end of the presentation, I will also talk a bit about community plugins, plugins that have been implemented by our users, and some of them are quite interesting and they might help you with your daily tasks, so it's worth mentioning them as well. So why do we think that plugins are important? So a plugin is a software component that adds additional functionality to Oxygen by using a number of available extension points. Well, for once, we see them as being important for the community. Why should our users implement plugins? Well, because we receive a lot of requests, and we have to prioritize them. And sometimes what we decide might mean that those features that you're waiting for will take a bit longer to arrive. So why wait for them when you can do them yourself using our API? And on the other hand, some features require a deep use case knowledge and understanding. Like, for example, at the end, I will present a few TEI plugins that I think would have been quite difficult for us to understand what we should do and do them properly. And on the other hand, plugins are also important for us, for Oxygen, because if instead of building a feature directly into the Oxygen code, if we do it as a plugin, then we'll have a faster release cycle, which means that these features will reach the end user faster, and we will receive the feedback from the user, and based on that feedback we might decide to invest in some additional functionality or in some other. And we also do these plugins open source on GitHub because we want to encourage contributions. And as example, for those of you that want to start a plugin but don't know exactly how to do it. And as a bonus, plugins can be installed quite easily through the add-ons deployment mechanism. So they will reach the user quite fast, but I'll show you how that works with our first plugin. So first of all, we now have a Git plugin, and this is something that was asked a lot of times in the past years. We have had a lot of requests here at XML Prague as well. I can see here in the room some of you that with whom I had this conversation. But somehow this Git plugin didn't quite enter in our priorities. So it took us a while to reach it, but we finally implemented last year in autumn. So why? The first question we asked ourselves was, why do people need another Git client? Because there are already good clients available. And we were using them as well. And we started thinking that, well, first of all, they are outside of Oxygen, and switching context can be annoying, especially if you have to do that a lot of times. And if you use mostly common actions like commit the changes in the repository, push, pull other changes, that means that you'll have to do these context switching quite a lot. And last but not least, Oxygen has a great diff tool. And if you were not already convinced, I bet that after Octavian presentation, you are now believers. Are you believers? Yes, okay. So this Git plugin is available on GitHub. And if you go on its page, you'll see the installation procedure. What you really need is this particular URL here. Just copy it. And afterwards, in Oxygen, go to Help, install new add-on, and just paste this URL here. And just select the plugin and click Next, follow the install procedure, and you'll have the plugin. So it's quite painless. After you install the plugin, you'll get this view here, Git staging. As I've mentioned, we started small with this Git plugin. We wanted to offer first the basic functionality, and afterwards, by user requests, we intend to grow it, to add more and more and more to it. But we don't intend to replace full-fledged Git client like Source Tree or Git Kraken. Some things that are complex to do, you'll still have to use those. So let's see what functionality we currently have in this Git plugin. So on the toolbar, you can clone a new repository if you don't have one already. So if I put here an URL and select a location, it will clone the repository and open it in the view. Now, chances are that you already have a checkout of the repository, so if that's the case, you can just go here, the working copy combo box, and browse for the working copy, and it will get loaded just as such. So apparently I have a change here. Okay. So let's see what other functionality it offers. So just in case you didn't have enough flower-related topics in Octavian presentation, I will have more of them. This one's about how to care and prepare your garden to have beautiful flowers. So let's say that I make a change. Care and preparation in Prague. Again, let's put here Prague as well, since we are in Prague. And we save. And as soon as I save, this file will appear as modified in the Git staging view. I can either choose this flat view, or if I have more changes, I can switch to a tree view, see more hierarchy. And if I double click it, Oxygen's diff tool will be used to show me the changes. I can stage this file and commit it. Afterwards, the pull action on toolbar will show me that I have one commit that I can pull. So let's send it to push. Sorry. So let's push it to the remote repository. And to simulate the conflict, I will use a different working copy for the same repository. So in the project view, I will just select a different project. The Git view will detect that and automatically load the working copy from that Oxygen project. So as you can see here, I have one change coming. But before pulling it, so I have a conflict, I will change a bit to the same topic. So I also like Paris, so let's say that we can care for our flowers in Paris as well. So let's save. The file appears as modified. If I want, I can try and pull the changes, but the plugin won't let me because I have conflictual changes. So it will give me an advice to commit the changes, so a merge can be performed. So let's stage the file and commit it in the local repository. And now I can pull the remote changes, and I get a pop-up saying that the pull was successful, but I have conflicts in this particular file. Okay, so this is the file, and it has a conflict icon next to it. And to resolve the conflict, I can either choose to keep mine copy or theirs copy, or I can open it in Oxygen diff tool and manually solve the conflict. So let's go with Prague, since we're in Prague and we love Prague. So we leave it here in preparation in Prague, like so, and then we save. And the file gets pulled out of the conflict state. It's staged, and all I can do now is all I have to do now is to commit it. Of course, if I'm not happy with it, I can restart the merge and have another look at it. Maybe I want to go with Paris instead of Prague. But let's keep Prague as well. So we'll commit the conflict resolution. And after that, we will push to the remote repository without any issues. Now, besides this, what else I can do in the plugin is to switch between local branches. In this particular case, I have 2 branches here. As soon as I switch, this information label here will update. So now I'm on the dev branch, and I am up to date. I'm not behind or ahead with the commits. And another thing that I can do in the view, if I open this particular working copy, This repository uses Git submodules. So I can click on the submodule section on the toolbar, see the submodule being available. I can click OK. The submodule will be loaded. I get a warning because this particular submodule is on the detached head, and that's dangerous because your changes won't belong to any branch. So I can go to the select branch and put this module on the master branch perhaps, and perhaps make some changes in it. So for example, this submodule was added as a result of user request. More precisely, Tobias Fischer wanted this, so we've added in this plugin. So it's an example how user feedback can drive this plugin development. So what we want is for you to give it a try and maybe give us some feedback. Okay, let's go back to the slides. So what to do next? Like I said, we're open for suggestions. What we were thinking is to invest a bit more in branch management. When you clone a repository, to be able to select which branch gets checked out by default, maybe even afterwards to check out remote branches, because the plugin right now only allows you to switch between local branches. And perhaps work a bit on the user experience, see how we can do things better in the UI. Next, it's the Expect plugin. How many of you have heard of Expect or are using Expect? A few, that's good. So Expect, it's a unit test and behavior-driven development framework for your XSLTs and Xqueries. And it's an open source project available on GitHub. And they just released a new version, version 1, which means the project is now mature, since it has a major version. And they also added support for writing tests for Schematron, which is great. And the idea for this plugin began also at XML Prague a couple of years ago. Back then we presented to you the support that we've added for Expect, which was something like, so this is an Expect file with an attribute. You specify the style sheet that gets tested, and you write these scenarios for testing various functions or templates from that style sheet. You invoke a function and then you make an assertion. And what we had back then, coming back to what I was originally saying, is that to run this Expect file, you would go on the toolbar and you transform it. And a report would be opened in the browser, and you click it and see exactly what changed. But the feedback that we received back then was that, okay, but that's great, but you can do more, because with any programming language, when you write your unit tests, your IDE offers you a specialized view in which you can choose which scenario, which test to run, work a bit on the code and run the test again, and so on. So we listened to that feedback, and we've implemented this plugin, this particular plugin. Again, to install it, you just go on the GitHub page, you get an URL from there, paste it in the install add-ons dialog, and follow the installation procedure. But once you install it, you get this dedicated view, expect test results, an action on the toolbar. If you run it, it will execute the tests and it will present the results not in an external application but right here in this particular view. So let's see what functionality it offers. So first of all, I can choose to focus on just on the test that actually failed, and for each test I can go to its definition and have a look at it, see if it actually asserts what it should. So for example, this test here tests a template that should escape regular expression characters. So here in this phrase the parentheses should be escaped because they have a meaning in regular expressions. So what I should obtain after processing this input is this particular phrase, so with a backslash before the parentheses. And as a hint that something changed in the phrase, the template should also set a status attribute. So if it changed something, it should say change. If it didn't, then it should put the same value here. To see why the test is failing, we will go to the expect test results view and click on the qdiff button. We'll get a visual representation of the expected and the actual results, and this is actually what you see also in the HTML report. But sometimes for complex XML fragments it might be difficult to understand what exactly differs between these two fragments. In this kind of situations you can click on the diff button instead, and Oxygen's diff tool will show you the differences, and in it you can easily see what exactly differs. So for example, we see here that this phrase was correctly escaped, but the value of the status attribute, it's wrong, so it's backwards. It should say changed because the phrase was changed, but it says same. And for these other two phrases where everything remained untouched, the value of the status attribute should be same, but again it wrongfully says changed. So the values are backwards. So it's definitely an issue in our style sheet. To fix it, we will open the style sheet and focus on the template that processes a phrase. So we see here that the value of the status attribute is computed like this. If the current phrase text value equals with its escaped version, then it says changed, wrongfully says changed. Otherwise it remains the same, so it should be a different here. So if the current text value is different than its escaped value, then the value of the same attribute should be changed. So we make this change, and in the expect test results view I can go directly to it. I don't have to pass through the expect file. I'll just click run to run just this particular test. The test is running, and as you can see,
it is successful. So I fixed the problem in my style sheet. So anyway, like I said, the plugin is available on GitHub. Please give it a try and give us your feedback so we can further improve the plugin. Moving forward, the next plugin, it's for Dogbook documents, and it's called Dogbook Validate and Check for Completeness. What it actually does, so for a Dogbook elements, there are some quality checks that are not covered by the standard validation. For example, things like broken links or missing images, or even a more complex type of a problem, conflict between profiling attributes. To demonstrate this plugin, I will switch to Oxygen and open a Dogbook document. So this article is about the lakes in Fogarach Mountain and is intended for those that want to go hiking in the mountains and visit these lakes. If I were to just validate this document, you'll see here on the bottom that it says validation successful. So apparently there is nothing wrong with this document. Let's see what the Dogbook Validate and Check for Completeness plugin tells us. To use it on the toolbar, I will click this particular action here, and it shows me a dialog in which I can choose to either validate the current file or maybe multiple files altogether, but for this particular scenario I'm happy with the current file. Next, make sure that you select the Use Profile Conditions checkbox, and we will use the profiling condition sets defined in Oxygen's preferences. If we click here, we can go there to see them in more detail. So a profiling condition set basically defines a particular deliverable. So in my case, when I'm publishing this article for novices, for people who don't usually go hiking in the mountains, they don't have so much experience, I only want to publish those elements that have the audience attribute set to novice, so they are intended for novices. So, and here you also have various other possible checks like broken links or references to missing images, etc. Let's click check. The plugin is running. We get a report describing the external links, internal links, the images referred in the document. I can even search for something in particular, but I'm not interested in this report right now, so I'll just close it. And in the results view, we see a number of problems in the document. So first of all, this link to the Moldovanu peak is broken. If I click it, it goes to a non-existing link on Wikipedia. So let's fix this particular problem. So we can edit the href attribute and correct the link. The second problem, it's one related with a profiling condition set. So here, when this lake is being presented, it says that you should also visit this other lake, Lake Kaltsun. But when I publish my this article for the novices, the Lake Kaltsun won't be published, because if we activate the show profiling attributes, you'll see that Lake Kaltsun is available only for expert hikers, as opposed to this other lake, which is marked as being for novices. So to fix this problem, we can either remove this paragraph altogether, or if we decide that Lake Kaltsun can also be reached by a novice hiker, then we can select novice here as well, save the document, and when we check again, we will see no more issues. So everything is valid now. Again, this plugin is available on GitHub. Give it a try and let us know what you think of it, what could be improved.
If you have to translate your content into one or several languages, there are costs. And usually a translation service provider charges you by the words. So if you have 1,500 words and the price is 12 cents per word, it will cost you this much. Translation memories can help with that. What do I mean by that is that if you have the translation service provider will charge you differently for words that do not match, have never been translated, or words that are only partially match what they've already translated for you before. And the lowest price is for the words that match entirely, so this on the bottom. But there's still a price, because the translator will still go over maybe review those files, make sure everything's okay. So this is where we think this plugin can help you. So why send to translation these files that you know that don't have any change in them? So that's the idea behind the plugin. And to see the plugin in action, I'll go back to Oxygen and I will open, what a surprise, a growing flowers DITA map. And let's say that, so this is the English version of my documentation, and now I'm at a point where my translations are all synchronized. I have the French translation, the German translations, and so on, and I want to start working on the next version for my documentation. Before doing that, from the contextual menu of the DITA Maps Manager, I'll go to the Translation Package Builder and generate a milestone. So this milestone contains a hash code for each file. So this way we will know whenever a particular file changes. And after I do that, I will just start and work on the documents and change them however I feel necessary. And to simulate that, I will use the XML refactoring action in Oxygen to make a change in a couple of topics. So I will insert a paragraph with a new thing and put it in the body element as a first child. Next, we can preview it. So these two files were changed and this new paragraph appeared. It's exactly what I want, so I'll click finish. And now when I reach this point where I want to release the new version of my documentation and send it to the translation service provider, again from the contextual menu, I will select the create modified files package action here on the bottom. So this will create a zip archive with just those modified files. So in my particular case, these two files, the introduction and care. And I save, I create the package, and I send it to the translation service provider, which translated, I also get a report. And after the translator translates the content, sends it back to me, maybe in French. I will open the French version of my documentation. So this one is French, it's Planter des Fleurs. From the contextual menu, again, to this translation package builder, I will apply the package received from the translator. I select this zip file, and I want to preview the changes. So two files came from the translator. The first one contains this universal shows. So it's my new paragraph translated. The second one contains the same thing. So I can just apply the changes. And if I am to open the topics, I will see that the changes have been applied on the French version of the documentation. Okay. So that's how we think that this plugin can help. But I'm more than curious to hear your input on it, see how we can improve it. Probably I still have 5 minutes left. Yes, that's good. Oops. Okay, this other plugin I had, it disabled. Right. Oops. So the next plugin, it's called DITA Prologue Updater. The idea behind it, its raison de vivre, is to automatically add metadata whenever you are saving a document. For example, the author that makes the change, or maybe it's a contributor, the date, the created date, or the date where it was revised, modified. So these are kind of metadata that can be easily automated and imposed by a plugin. And so if I go to Oxygen, where is Oxygen? And open a topic. If I make a change and save, this metadata is automatically added in the document. So, and if I change this date somewhere in the past, and I save it again, another revised date would be appended, and so on. And this particular plugin also has an options page. So if you go to preferences, plugins, you'll see a page named DITA Prologue Updater, and you can select which kind of metadata the plugin should insert, which author name it should use, and so on. Again, the same ideas behind these plugins can be applied to any document type. So right now it does this for DITA, but any XML vocabulary has its own metadata elements, and the plugin could be extended to those documents as well. JavaScript-based plugins. So our API is Java-based, but some people are more accustomed to write JavaScript than Java. And for those of you, we allow JavaScript-based plugins. So you will write JavaScript instead of Java. And again, on our GitHub account, there are a number of such plugins which are a great inspiration not only if you want to write a JavaScript-based plugin, but also if you want to find out how you can use our API, because the API is the same. So maybe you want to impose some options. Go and take a look here. Or maybe you want to filter some validations problems. There's an example for that as well. So take a look and get some ideas from it. We also have Saxon 9.x plugins. Usually when we release Oxygen, we try to integrate the latest version of Saxon, but many of our users still want to use an older version, or maybe we don't, or maybe Saxon releases a new version shortly after we release Oxygen. So for these type of situations, we've implemented some plugins that contribute a certain version of Saxon. So you can transform, you can create transformation scenarios and use these versions of Saxon. And who knows, maybe even other XSLT processor can be integrated as such. Maybe Abel-Braxma engine, for example. The community, we want to encourage the community to develop their own such plugins. We have a page on our website, and if you send us plugin, there is a procedure here, and we can advertise your plugins. So your plugins will appear here, and also when the user goes to Oxygen and says install new add-ons, your plugins will automatically be presented here. So the user will just have to select them and install them. I'm running short on time, so deploy as add-ons. And there are also a number of third-party plugins that we've discovered and are quite interesting. You should take a look. So Argon Author, it's an author technical content system. It uses Basics to store the documents and Oxygen to edit them. It provides a specialized view to browse the database and open documents. It has versioning, and it's also an open source project on GitHub, so again a good source of inspiration. Nico Kucherauer has an Open Docs plugin to help you manage your documents, to organize them into working set, to make it easier for you when you are forced to work with a lot of documents. Delta XML has a plugin that integrates their diff tool, also a great diff tool, into Oxygen. And there are a number of TI related plugins that query remote authority files. Some things that I think I would never be able to implement myself, because I don't know the concepts. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'm the only thing standing between you and your coffee. Have any of you ever implemented plugins for Oxygen? I knew about you, Peter. Maybe frameworks, no? Well, it's a good moment to start, because we have a mature API, we have a lot of examples, so it should be as painless as possible. So if you don't have any questions, last call. George, you want to talk a bit about what's coming after the break?
Yeah, so after the last break, we will have my colleague Radu share some tips and tricks of using Oxygen. And we were thinking that's a very good session to kind of provoke you, or get you started for the panel discussion to find out also some of your ideas. And in the panel, we also want to focus on what we plan to do next with in Oxygen, directions and things like that. And hopefully, you will provide us also some feedback on that.
A penny for your thoughts, basically.
So thanks, and enjoy the coffee break.